listening to the Twin Theory Podcast,
Season 4.
Hey, so we are back with our next episode for our Twin Theory Podcast. And this is Marrisa this time kicking us off. So you generally hear Courtney, but you got me. So welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the past couple of weeks in our last conversation that we had a little bit on intuition. So we're definitely looking for your feedback and what you think about that. And we're still potentially looking at maybe bringing on our brother and our father to talk a little bit more about that. But hopefully you enjoyed that episode, and we got some more new things for today. So looking at today, we were thinking, what are some things that maybe we've learned over the years as we've gotten older? And if any of it relates to us being twins or just in general as adults. So I think I'll start off with what I readily think of, and it's more of my personality type, which is I'm more of an introverted person. Most people know that knows me. And so I remember for sure growing up, I always tried to make sure that I was in a situation where me and Courtney were teamed up. Like if it was any kind of like group event where you pick your group, I was going wherever group she was at. And if not, I was hoping that I would get picked to be in the group that she was. Not particularly that I cared for whatever it was we were doing, but because I didn't want to, I'm not a center of attention person, and I kind of wanted to deflect to Courtney to kind of be like the spokesperson on our behalf. So I was a bit more shy for sure growing up. And so over the years, of course, that doesn't help you, because when you get into positions where you kind of have to step out and be on your own and be by yourself, it can be a bit more of a struggle trying to figure that out and learning how to get a bit more comfortable with that. So I know growing up, and I say when I was younger it started, but really I can think through times in middle school and even high school maybe where I tried to position myself more to where we were together in some ways. So I don't want to say, Court, that you could absorb the hit, but you could at least be like the face, if you will, of the twin committee for us. And I didn't have to like speak up or do anything. So thinking back to that now, looking back on that, I mean, we talked about in plenty of our episodes about when we first did our major split going to college and what that was like. But I think the realization hit then, like, okay, well, this didn't help me out, because now we went to two different schools, which totally fine. We didn't have any issues with that. I don't think we ever even explored going to the same school when we were talking about colleges. But at that time, it was like, okay, so the opportunity where I could have kind of got used to this is gone. And now I'm like out here in Front Street and having to kind of figure it out in the midst of figuring out me and figuring out my voice and who I am and that sort of thing. So I would definitely say I'm glad that I have learned that wisdom piece, if you will. But I certainly wish that when I was younger, I had kind of taken time to step away and to separate a bit more for that. So I wouldn't say we did things. I think some people sometimes like, y'all are twins. People say that. Y'all are twins. Y'all are always together, and think it's in the sense of we always want to be together, which I love you. You know that. But I always don't want to be with you. And you definitely always don't want to be beside me. But I think that in those times, it was more so a safety. And you were that safety for me. Did you have any thoughts to that, Court? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. You made some very great points there. And it's interesting just hearing you talk about your experience and just kind of not having that voice for yourself, and me being that person that kind of spoke for you a lot, and you kind of just growing into your own as you got older, and just some of those lessons that you learned. And it's interesting when I think about it, because as much as I was kind of like the mouthpiece for us, if you will, I still struggled a lot. That was still kind of a lesson for me as well. Even though I was the one that was more vocal and kind of the one that stood and took the hits, if you will, and Riss was kind of just like there, but you being there actually still was enough. It was still something, at least it was something to me to know that you were there. And I think that goes to the bigger part of, for those that maybe grow up that are only child, or maybe there's this huge separation in age between them and their sibling. Some things they get to endure by themselves. when growing up. And sometimes you learn how to lick your wounds and that sort of thing when you're growing up, because you have to endure certain things by yourself. And so it didn't matter if I was out front and center or not, we still had each other to kind of endure some of those things that we went through, some of those, life struggles and that sort of thing. We were always there. It was always, when I came back home, you were going to be there. And, like when you came back home, I was going to be there. Maybe I stood up for you in the moment or whatever, but it didn't matter. You were still there, when I needed you, or you were there whenever I was going through something. So that was something that I also had to learn when I was out there, definitely, like you said, in college, where it's like, oh no, it's actually still me here. And it just felt different, because it was like, now, even though I'm speaking on behalf of myself, well, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I go back to my dorm room and it's just me there to kind of deal with the things that I'm going through on the daily basis. So that was still, to me, I think, a big kind of like, life lesson, if you will, that might have come, for both of us a little bit later than it did for some other people who maybe, they've always been in that position where they kind of have to endure that or be able to grow into being able to stand up for themselves and that sort of thing. So definitely, I would say just two different perspectives, but definitely went through some of the same things. So while we're here, I would say, so we're 33. And, definitely lots has changed between being a teenager and going to college and graduating, and now just living and having several years now living, in this adult life. However, I think it's easy to be able to identify how you grow over, or, some of those life lessons and things that you've learned over a longer period of time. But maybe what's something that you have maybe learned over a shorter period of time, maybe in the last 5 years? So somewhere between 28 and 33, have you ever had any life lessons or anything that you can think of, Marrisa, to go like, this is how I've grown, or this is what I've learned, or like even, with your job or anything like that?
So I would say for me, probably within the past like 2.5 years, sometimes there's things where I'm like, oh, I really want this, and I hope for it and pray for it, but sometimes things is just not going to fall in your lap. It's not going to be delivered by Amazon. Like, you're going to have to make the initiative to get out there and do it. And for me, again, falling back on that introverted personality, sometimes I find myself secluding more, being at home more, not doing as much or getting around other people. But I guess the interesting part is I always wanted to do that, like build friendships, go out, do things. And so, it got to a point where it's like, well, that's just not going to magically happen. You're going to have to like put effort in to try and get out, to meet people, to do things. And so, I've been a whole lot more involved meeting strangers, y'all. I'm a part of a meetup group that I meet up with regularly, and it's people that I don't even know, and that's a big deal for me. To even like take time and do that and meet people I don't know, and just to get out there and to live, and I think sometimes that it can be comfortable, or at least for me, it was comfortable. And, going through the day-to-day, doing the things that I was used to, interacting with the people that I've met. But there was also a part of me that felt like there was more. There's more I was looking to in life, more relationships I was wanting to build. To a degree, I was a bit nervous, shy, scared, because I'm like, what does it take? And I'm not the most introverted or extroverted person. And how are people going to kind of perceive me as being quiet, but still trying to break out there? And I didn't really know what that looked like. But I got to a point where I was like, well, I will never know what that looks like if I don't try. So, I would say over the past few years, to get out there, to do that, to actually follow up with people, to put in the effort, to build those relationships and kind of live that life I always wanted to. So I would say that's probably been the newest thing for me. And I mean, the nice thing is like, well, did it kill you? It didn't. Did it give you some embarrassment at times? Sometimes, but I lived through it and I learned. So I would say for me, that's kind of been the most recent thing. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And before I get into me, I would definitely say it's, the more that we talk and kind of hash through some of these things that we experience and just kind of how it's progressed over time, I think about that, like even you being more introverted, and I consider myself to be more introverted as well. People think that I'm extroverted, but I love being inside, like I go outside every once in a while, but even when I go out to events, I'm not like the life of the party, not all the time, but most of the time I'm kind of in the corner. I'm just kind of chill. I'm kind of observant. But, I wonder if that does have anything to do with us being twins, and that's something, kind of a question that I throw out there, maybe might be good at looking at, is how many twins are introverts versus those that are potentially extroverts. And I think of that because this is my I haven't researched anything. I ain't got no background on this. This is just my opinion. For somebody who's maybe a only child, or maybe there's a lot of years in between them and their siblings, like a lot of times they're, trying to make friends and trying to meet people and be involved and do something with people. So I feel like they may be, more extroverted because that's the only way that they can kind of pick up and have friends and that sort of thing. Whereas your twins, they have somebody through everything, like, okay, I already got my person. I already know, when I go home, like, hey, Marrisa, you there, we can chill out. We good. We can do all of this. I don't have to worry about trying to find that playmate, if you will. Like I already have my playmate. So, I don't know. That's just a theory of probably a ton of theories, but I wonder that. And when you even talked about you being kind of introverted and kind of, trying to step out of that, kind of how that is. But even I think of it as just living here, and we're very close to each other now. Like, that you could call me and say, hey, you want to go to the movies? And I'm like, well, yeah, you don't have to go out like that and, maybe search for friends or interact with a whole bunch of people, because, I'm down for 99.9% of whatever you're going to suggest to me. I think, that's a interesting point that you, made. And I wonder that could be something, deeper there. Definitely over the last 5 years, I would say my growth has been in things that maybe lessons learned, if you will, would be just taking some chances, definitely when it comes to my professional career. Sometimes I think you can get a little complacent and get a little like everyday-ish with I found a job and it checks all the marks, it does pretty good, but then you get to a point that it becomes routine and you're in a position for a super, super long time, and it's like, listen, I have to change it up some. And so I think that's definitely over the 5 years, I've definitely jumped off. I'm not going to say jump off a cliff because that sounds weird, but I've definitely taken that leap of faith when it comes to, hey, let me try something different. And not that I've like just totally went from apples to oranges in my career, but I've just taken more chances, if you will. I've looked into more professional development opportunities and just opportunities for me to be able to, be exposed to maybe different areas of my career that I had not been. So I definitely say in the last 5 years, that's something I've done, and it's something that I never thought I would do. A lot of things have happened in these last 5 that, when I really sit here and think about, it's just kind of like, wow, I could not have imagined this 10 years ago or even, 20 years ago. So definitely in the last 5 years. So next question could be a little interesting. So we think about the things that we, how we've changed and what we've learned over the years. But I think there's always that portion that part of us that's like, hey, this is something that I would like to do. This is something, or, maybe it's a mentor we have that we look at and we look up to, or parent or somebody that we look up to, and there's something that they have, something that they do, something about them that you're like, man, I'm trying to get to that. And I'm trying to grow in that way or whatever. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get there. So when we look at the next like 5 to 10 years and we're thinking of like growth and just progressing and that sort of thing and just learning from experiences, is there anything that you kind of can think of and go like, man, this is where I would love to be in 5 to 10 years, or this is and not even maybe this is where I would love to be, but maybe this is a characteristic or an aspect of somebody maybe that you look up to, or somebody that you know that you would like to be able to kind of have some of that or hone some of that yourself?
I would say this might be a weird one, but I would say having more confidence off the cuff. You know, for me, I'm very much a planner. I like to know things ahead of time. I like to have it all together. And sometimes there are things that occur in life, whether I be at an event and somebody like, oh, Marrisa, can you come and speak on such and such, or at work or whatever. And, you know, I'm generally not an ad hoc or unplanned kind of a person. And there's some people that recover to that beautifully, like can get up there and do it. I mean, I think about my mom. She might show up to an event and, you know, she knows the people and that sort of thing. Oh, you know, the host fell out. Michelle, can you jump up here and host real quick or something like that? And she's like, okay. And that doesn't mean she doesn't have any nerves or anything, but she's able to get up there and, like, you know, kill it, you know, from top to bottom. And you probably would never know. And, you know, I think about that myself and I'm like, I would do my best. But I also know that, you know, I when it comes to ad hoc and off the cuff things and just for the moment, I'm not that person. You know, I'm very much a planner to the T, and, you know, I need a heads up and that sort of thing. So I realize that life doesn't always offer that planning, and it's not a bad thing, but to kind of build more confidence in that, knowing that, you know, I can, if I'm at work or if I'm even at an event or coming to support somebody and just anything like at a birthday party and like, hey, Marrisa, can you come and say a couple of words? You know, having more confidence in that, just in that moment and kind of what I can offer ad hoc. So I don't know if I articulated that well, but that's kind of what I would like to do.
Yeah, we are definitely twins. We are definitely twins, because that is something that, you know, I think it's interesting because I think we take more from our father in the sense that, like, we are really, really thorough planners when it comes to, okay, if I'm going to be speaking, anything that requires, I'll say, oral communication, definitely we want to be able to plan and research and be able to have everything nicely, you know, mapped out of how we're going to say it. And we usually do extremely well there. But because we do extremely well there are a lot of people that just feel like, oh, well, you did so well on this. So, like, can you just do this right quick? And, you know, maybe you get that last minute request to do something, whether, again, it be in the personal life or professionally at your job or something. It's like, oh, my goodness, that presentation that you did last weekend at that, you know, conference was so good. Can you speak at this event that we're going to have in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Just share some words on whatever. And you're like, oh, my God. Like, no, you didn't just ask me to, like, this. I have no time to prepare, you know, like mentally you're just like out of it. And so definitely that's a place that, you know, I would love to be able to grow in is to do that off the cuff. I think, you know, because probably you as well as me, when we think in the future and maybe how we would like to progress, especially in our careers, we're going to absolutely most likely be in positions where we have to be able to speak off the cuff. And we do have to take some ad hoc, you know, situations where we may have to speak or whatnot. And it's like, okay, we really have to go in. And so I do think we take that a lot from our father in the having to really thoroughly plan. Whereas, like you said, mother, you know, could host an entire weekend event off the cuff, you know, and it's just kind of like, how do you do that, you know? And so, yeah, I think she does really good with that. She does really good from kind of learning from other. She could be just a speaker that you throw on the stage in a panel, and she's the third one that's going to speak. And just from the first two people speaking, by the time it gets to her, she's like able to pull everybody's stuff together and just hit you with a message and everything. And I'm sitting there like, okay, like that I can do, but not off the cuff like that. I just need a few hours to let it marinate and be able to go, you know, and figure myself out. And so definitely I would say yes, in the next few years, being able to be kind of that off the cuff and be able to really kind of give a really good, to be able to speak intelligently and really be able to say all the things without having to, you know, maybe a few hours later think, man, I should have said this. Oh, goodness, I wish I would have said that. Or, man, if I had some more time, I would have done this. It's like being able to pull what you need to pull to say and get out, you know, as I'm struggling right now. Exhibit A. But yes, definitely being that more off the cuff speaker, and I think would be great. So maybe that's something that we'll work on a little bit more. And I know my dad is going to listen to this and go, you should do Toastmasters. sister, you know. I already know it's coming. But yeah, definitely in the next few years, that is definitely an area that I think that we both could maybe work and push each other a little bit. I'll say, you know, we've said our mother, but I think our brother does pretty good with off the cuff as well. You know, if you tell him, hey, can you go on the stage right quick and just, you know, present this award? He's like, what's the award for? Oh, okay. And they just go up there and he'll just do it. And it's just like, you would have never known that, you know, we just told him 2 minutes prior to go up there and present an award. I definitely agree with you there. So any questions that you have, Riss? Any parting questions or anything you can think of? No, not really. I think, you know, again, the more that we talk about it, I see like how we're connected in ways. We talked about that in the last episode, and intuition and that sort of thing. But even when it comes to like our growth, you know, I almost feel like we're growing at the same pace. It feels weird, right? But it's not like a lopsided growth where it's like, ooh, Court, you're like beaming over here in this area and I'm lacking in that area, but I'm doing great over here and you're lacking in. It seems like we're just, you know, progressing and learning and like having these life lessons and learning and at the same pace, which is interesting because we do two different things and we work in two different jobs, but we're just kind of still picking it up at the same time, and we still have some things that we have to work on, and they happen to be the same thing. So wow, G-figure, we are twins. Definitely something interesting, and maybe something even to be researched by folks, because again, as we experience things as kids, we most of the time had to overcome it at the same time, and like how does that kind of, you know, how does that bleed over into your, you know, adult life, and maybe what that looks like when you're an adult. So anyway, well, anyone out there that twins, or again, if your parents are twins or, you know, multiples or anything, I, you know, definitely would be very, very interested in getting some of your feedback as to maybe some of the things that we've talked about, maybe, you know, some of your opinions on that, and also maybe your own personal situations with you and your twin, or again, you know, twins that you have. How have you seen maybe their progression? Or do you see them going in two different directions, or does it seem to kind of, you know, pan out, you know, if you will? Do they seem to be growing and progressing at the same rate, if you will? So what type of, you know, when it comes to their life lessons, and just what does that look like for them? Anyway, let us know. Give us a shout. You can send us an email at twintheorypodcasters@gmail.com, or you can send us a DM on our Instagram at Twin Theory Podcast. You can also find us on any major streaming podcast platform at Twin Theory Podcast. And yeah, just reach out to us. We'll definitely be looking forward to staying tuned with you. I hope you guys are having a great holiday as we're in the holiday seasons, and we will look at talking to you next month. Take care.